It's rookie draft season, ladies and gentlemen. That means it is time to get active in your dynasty leagues. It means it is time to go ahead, make some moves, make some trades. We are going to be looking at some real dynasty leagues here with people that are making trades, trying to come up with some strategy as well as some trades that they can make in their rookie drafts to put them in the best position possible. But before we get into it, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty. And of course, if you not only want to get my Dynasty rookie rankings, but at the same time, if you want to get access to all of your favorite Dynasty fantasy football creators, Dynasty rookie rankings, Dynasty startup rankings, the whole 9 yards, you already know it. Plus, if you want to get your team broken down in a podcast just like this one, go sign up for flockfantasy.com. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up. That's how you're going to get a podcast breaking down your dynasty team by yours truly. If you want it in a podcast, we'll do that. If you want it in a live stream, we'll do that. Whatever you're wanting, ladies and gentlemen. But I think that should be about it. Let's go ahead and let's pull this team out here. This one's going to be coming out from Tornado Man. Okay, I'm an idiot, of course. But anyways, to Solo Basin, I know, send the hate below for not having Sleeper. I've been trying to get the commissioner to change it for years. It's a 12-team, 2-quarterback, full PPR. It is possible that we may have to switch to Superflex this year. I've been thinking about trading to get Bijan Robinson. I feel like we're at a turning point where the rebuild is over and I should start going after players I want. Should I try to go after an elite quarterback or should we just try to power through with elite skill positional players? Thank you for all the hard work you've been putting in for the Dynasty players to come together. Now, thank you again, my man, for being a member of the flock. Currently, we have the 102, the 106, the 109, the 110, 202, and 209. Well, that's what we had, ladies and gentlemen, because we traded those picks away. Not all of them, of course, but we traded a decent amount away. I mean, we went through and we gave up, in my mind, maybe makes sense, but we'll talk about this in just 1 second. The 106, the 109, the 202, and a 2024 first for Bijan Robinson. And in my mind, I think it probably makes sense for this team in particular to go get Bijan Robinson here. Now, of course, I'm extremely biased, right? Like, of course, yes, I went through, talked to Bijan Robinson last week. I am literally a Texas alumni. So I am going to be the most biased person you could ever ask about this deal. But if we are so loaded in our Dynasty League that we are currently sitting with the 101, the 102, the 110, the 202, the 209, and then we still have 2 2024 first, we still have 3 2025 first, this is the situation where we can afford to overpay for Bijan Robinson. We have an embarrassment of riches here where I think it makes sense to just go through and take a ton of these pieces, package them together, put a little bow on it, and send it over for Bijan Robinson. Now, please let me know what y'all think in the live chat. We have about 100 people out here watching this. What would you rather have in this instance? Would you rather have the 106, the 109, the 202, and your 2024 first, or Bijan Robinson? Now, we're going to pull up this team, and you'll see this team's great. Like, as you would expect, a team with this many rookie picks, we're pretty damn loaded. Keep in mind, this is a 12-team, 2-quarterback format, so those picks are going to be a little bit more valuable or a lot more valuable than what you would actually have in, say, a redraft or a 1-quarterback format. I apologize. We're all over the place here. Trying to read the live chat, seeing what y'all are telling me about Bijan. So it's a little closer, but C19 coming out says he'd rather have Bijan. Travis says he'd rather have Bijan as well. So I don't really see anybody saying that they would want the picks. And yeah, if we go ahead, if we pull up this roster, I mean, while yes, we need to make some moves, right? Like if you're going to go ahead, if you're going to look at the fact that at QB, we're currently sitting with Trey Lance. Like, no, we're not that excited about having Lance, Derek Carr as our QB1, QB2. Now, of course, you know, I'm never going to complain about having Trey Lance, but that's just me and I'm a sicko. But we still have the 102. We're still able to go through and either take Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson, whoever you're preferring. Now, of course, Anthony Richardson's going to be the guy that has the extremely high ceiling, while you have Bryce Young in my mind with a better floor. regardless, especially in a 2-quarterback format, you will be taking a quarterback there. And then if all of a sudden instead we have, say, Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, and Derek Carr, we should be in a fine spot in general. But I mean, going down to the bench and what we are going to have, I mean, we don't have any quarterbacks down here, so we are definitely needing to address the position. We have Sam Howell. Maybe you can be excited about Sam Howell. I guess in a 2 QB format, you'll probably end up starting him a bit. I would go Bryce Young, but that's just me, okay? That's just me. Now, going over to running back, strong position, but it's not overwhelmingly strong, right? Where we have Breece Hall, Cam Akers in the starting lineup. Going down to the bench, we have Khalil Herbert, Michael Carter, Isaiah Spiller. We don't have much. Now, what we will say is, as this running back room looks okay for now, adding Bijan Robinson to it makes it monstrous, right? Because if you're able to go through and if you're able to add Bijan Robinson into this room, Breece Hall is already pretty damn strong as a running back 1, but then to slide him down as your running back 2, to slide Cam Akers down to your running back 3 slot, to slide Khalil Herbert down to running back 4, we love it. Couldn't be happier. Wide receiver, we're currently sitting with Breece Hall, Jamar Chase, George Pickens, Christian Watson. Pretty damn happy at wide receiver, because what you have with this group of guys is the unique combination where these players are good enough to contend this next year, right? Like Jamar Chase in a redraft league would be a super strong wide receiver 1. Jalen Waddle would be a pretty strong low-end wide receiver 1. Christian Watson would be a pretty strong low-end wide receiver 2. Pickens would be a wide receiver 3. Like, we're strong enough to contend in a redraft league, but these players are still so young that they're getting better. These players can actually see their dynasty value increase by next offseason. So we have the perfect combination of both short-term production to contend as well as long-term upside where we can continue to see value being added on to the roster. We even have Jameson Williams going into year 2, kind of fitting that same mold. So we're in a really good spot at wide receiver. Tight end, we don't really have to talk about. We have the number 1 tight end overall in Dynasty in Kyle Pitts. So we're in a phenomenal situation in general. And if we were looking at what we can be doing this next year, like we already said, we are going to go ahead. We are going to be taking Bijan Robinson at 1. And in my mind, Bryce Young at 2. If you wanted to go Anthony Richardson, I'll be fine with it. Trading away 6 and 9 for Bijan Robinson was obviously a good deal. 110 is so difficult, right? Because if we're looking at pick 10, you have the fall off where we can assume Zay Flowers is off the board, Quentin Johnston's off the board, Jordan Addison's off the board, and then obviously all the elite players. Now, usually at pick 10, I've been throwing my hands up in the air going, you know what? I don't really know. Let's go Zach Charbonnet. Let's just take the talent. But because this is a 2-quarterback format and we are already loaded with the skill positional guys, I'm not going to mind kind of swinging for the fences here, going with Will Levis at the 110 because this is 2 QB, not super flex. Yeah, so I'm probably going to go Levis at 10. 202, I think it's really going to be up to you here. It's not tight end premium. I don't think we're really going to be looking at Michael Mayer. I'd assume Dalton Kincaid's off the board already. Maybe you take your shot on whatever high upside running back that you like. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind looking to trade away the 202. Like if you could say trade away the 202 and the 209 and throw them with the 110, and we could go back and get the 109 pick in return, get the 108 in return. I would really like that just so we can be inside that top tier because this team doesn't need depth, especially with the extra draft picks that we have in the 2024 draft and the 2025 draft, even after trading for Bijan Robinson. I think it puts you in a phenomenal situation, my friend. So yeah, I would go ahead and possibly look to make a move like that. But that's a very basic piece of advice that I'm pretty much giving to everybody. Let's go ahead and let's try to trade away our second round picks to get better in the starting lineup. But again, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the vlog and supporting the channel. Really hope that this was able to help you out. Really hope you're able to get something from it. And you know what I'm going to say? As always, if there's anything I can do for you, especially if there's any way that I can improve vlogfantasy.com for you, please don't hesitate to let me know. Just send me a message anytime. Please, please, please. Let me know how to improve for you. But before we dive over to our next team, we actually have a donation coming out here. This one's coming out from Brian. Thank you, my friend. Says 12 teams start 10. We have Dak, Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, the 103. And then running back, we have Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Cam Akers, Bijan. Wide receiver, we have Chase, London, Kirk, Lazard, Dobbs, Sky Moore. Tight end, we have Andrews, Woods. We want to shop a quarterback. Okay, so I'm obviously operating under the assumption that this is going to be a super flex format, considering the fact that you don't specify it's one quarterback. Also, given the fact that you put the 103 in there with the QBs. Now, if we were to go through and look to sell a QB here, it's not the easiest thing in the world, right? Because Dak Prescott has seen his value go down. Like if you're looking at Dak Prescott compared to where he was last offseason, you would be selling at a loss if you decided to go through and move him at this point. Now, on top of this, Russell Wilson not only has seen his value go down, but he has seen his value greater. Daniel Jones is really the only guy that's rising in value right now with the contract extension. If we were to go through and look to sell Daniel Jones, I wouldn't mind looking to sell Daniel Jones for a wide receiver in return. Let me go ahead and let me pull up my quarterback and wide receiver rankings on flogfantasy.com real quick. So if you ever want to like go through and use the rankings, my man, and say, okay, well, yeah, I want to sell Daniel Jones. I want to see what kind of wide receiver I can get in return. I'm not going to just sort it by my own rankings. I think maybe it's better if I actually sort it by the rankings of the overall site. But let's go ahead and let's swing this back over here so you can see. So what we did here is we sorted by, we just filtered out. Let's slide this down. Sorry, just trying to fix this for you real quick. You can see we just clicked quarterbacks, wide receivers. So we're really only going to be looking there. And if we look at where Daniel Jones is in these rankings, we're going to slide down here just a little bit. But if we're going to go to Daniel Jones, the wide receivers directly ahead of him, if you were looking to sell, would be Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. To be honest with you, I think you could get more for Daniel Jones. I think if we're looking to sell Daniel Jones, we could even go a little higher. I would probably be looking to sell Daniel Jones for maybe DK Metcalf. I would be looking to sell Daniel Jones a return that I think would be great and could actually be reasonable is if we could sell Daniel Jones for the 105, the 106, because there we could be getting back either Jackson Smith-Njigba or Jahmyr Gibbs. You would still be going into the season with Dak Prescott, whatever quarterback you take at 3, whether that is going to be Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson, and Russell Wilson. I think we'd be in a great spot, and I think you could add a phenomenal skill positional guy, my man. But that should be it for that. Let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team. This one coming out from Astronomic. Thank you. Says, hey, Mason, interested in getting a roster review. It's a 12-team PPR, 1 quarterback with a tight end premium. I won it all last season, but I'm wanting to work towards what it may take to keep the championship window open up a little bit longer and how to navigate our rookie picks outside of the 101. Thanks. Okay, so my man, if you were telling me that we won this bad boy last year and on top of this, we have the 101, yeah, good luck to your league mates. I have no idea how we don't repeat if we just added Bijan Robinson to literally the team that won it all last year. So let's go ahead and let's just try to get as much of this team in the frame as I can. So anyway, let's start off talking about the overall league settings here that we're going to have. We have right now 1 quarterback, mine's 1 QB league, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and 2 flex spots. So not too much to discuss. It is going to be a shallow format on the surface, but we can start 7 or no, I'm sorry. We can start 7 skill positional guys. So there aren't too many adjustments we need to be making. Like, let's just go with the players here. Justin Fields, in my mind, is almost the perfect example of a player that I would love in a 1 quarterback league, right? Like, if I'm going to be honest with you, yes, I know I'm known as the Justin Fields hater, even though I'll say in the Best Ball Resurrection Tournament on Underdog last year, Justin Fields may or may not have been our most drafted guy, but that's back when he was going rounds 15, 16, 17 on Underdog after the first few weeks, and everybody else at the quarterback position was going rounds 1 and 2. So that's a little bit different, but yes, I am a slight Justin Fields hater in the long term. I don't necessarily think he's as good of an NFL quarterback as everybody else does. And I do question on if the Chicago Bears earn a top 3 pick in this next year's draft, whether or not it's their own pick or the Carolina Panthers, on if they would consider possibly going through and taking Caleb Williams, taking Drake May, or if it's an automatic, oh, we just got the number 1 pick over again, let's trade away Justin Fields. I mean, trade away the 101 instead of replacing Justin Fields. I don't know. I think it is in the range of outcomes. It's unlikely Justin Fields is replaced next year, but I think it is a possibility where that possibility does not exist with someone like Trevor Lawrence. And for that stance, I think it makes a lot of sense for in Superflex leagues. You go with the security of a Trevor Lawrence, right? But given the rushing upside that Justin Fields has and the added weaponry to the Chicago Bears offense this next season, the improved offensive line on top of this, Justin Fields has an incredibly high ceiling. The man can break rushing records. So I think for a 1 quarterback format, Fields is almost the perfect guy to have because we don't really need to worry about the security. We just need to worry about the ceiling. We have Jalen Hurts here as well. So actually, never mind. We may look to sell Justin Fields. If we have Jalen Hurts and we can sell Justin Fields and go out and get like a top 5 pick and be able to pivot off and go get Quentin Johnston in a 1 QB league, I may be excited about it just because we have Jalen Hurts. And obviously, Jalen Hurts gives us not only the elite ceiling, but also the elite full floor. Going over to running back, we have Cam Akers, Najee Harris. Down there on the bench, we don't really... we have Breece. What the hell is with this team? Okay, because the thing is, we have Breece Hall, number 2 overall running back in Dynasty. And we were told that this team has the 101. So we have Bijan Robinson here as well. Okay, so far looking at this team, we have Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall. Najee Harris is our running back 3. Cam Akers is our running back 4. Quarterback, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields. Going over to wide receiver, shocking. Yet again, we are elites. We have CeeDee Lamb. We have Stephon Diggs. We have T. Higgins. We have Jerry Jeudy in the starting lineup. Going down to the bench, we even have an upside play, someone like Jameson Williams. Going over to tight end, we are extremely strong. We have a top 3 tight end in redraft. We have a top 3 tight end in the long term from a dynasty perspective. Going down to the bench, I have Hayden Hurst. I mean, Hayden Hurst isn't that exciting, but I don't know. Okay, this team is ridiculous. This is the best way to put it. This team is rigged. Okay. In terms of going through and making plays, there are very few that we can do. We are already in such a good spot. And in general, this is a deal that I do not like making. In general, I mean, when people come out and say, oh, Mason, should I trade the 109? Should I trade a first-round pick in Jameson Williams for Jalen Waddle? I'll say, well, you know what? I don't love Jameson Williams. I do love Jalen Waddle. But in general, it's not a good idea to be taking one of your wide receivers, trading away a first-round pick just to upgrade at that wide receiver slot. I would rather try to accumulate those first-round picks and trade a tier down with our wide receivers, except in a scenario like this, right? Because if we think about this team is loaded top to bottom. Not only is this team loaded, but this team at the same time has the 101, the 106, the 109, the 201. I'm assuming we're not even taking guys at the 312, 412. Nobody there is going to be able to help this team. We don't have a taxi squad, so at the very minimum, we have to cut 4 players. I don't know exactly how your league mates value DSTs. I don't know exactly how hard it's going to be to get a defense in your league. So I'm not going to speak on that front. I don't play in leagues with defenses anymore. I don't think they're fun. So I'm not going to say that we can be cutting a defense here because I just don't know exactly how this league operates. But if we were to go through and say, cut 4 guys off this roster, we're going to cut Hayden Hurst, pretty easy. We're going to cut Jarvis Landry, pretty easy. We're going to cut Keontae Ingram, pretty easy. And we're going to go through, and I guess we can cut Latavius Murray pretty easy. But then after that, we get put in a difficult situation where we have so many of these assets that we love for the long term that we're not really going to be able to do much with in terms of the roster flexibility next offseason. Like next offseason when we have more rookies coming in, who the hell are we supposed to cut? I mean, during this year, whenever we have someone popping off the waiver wire like Isaiah Pacheco, we're not really going to be able to make a play and go get them. We have so many quality pieces on the bench that are really never going to be able to hit our starting lineup because we're so dominant. So this is one of the very few scenarios where I'm fine looking to trade a first-round pick and a wide receiver and get an upgrade. If we could go through and take that 109, who in a 1 quarterback format won't be exciting. It's going to either be a QB or like Michael Mayer and Jerry Jeudy, And if we can go get a wide receiver upgrade, if we can go get Chris Olave, if we could go get maybe Devonta Smith to stack up with Jalen Hurts, I think those kind of moves would make a lot of sense when your team is this loaded. Going back to what we were talking about with the first team, when you have an embarrassment of riches, you're able to go through and you're able to quote unquote overpay for the stud. If you're in a deep league or if you're in a middle row team, it's very difficult for you to go through and overpay for a stud if it leaves you with absolutely nothing behind. This is a team that can do that. So honestly, my friend, that's what I'm going to look to do. I'm going to look at the 101 to most likely just take Bijan Robinson. 106, I think you're probably going to end up with Zay Flowers because if you break down the tiers, I mean, you're going to have 101 Bijan, then the next tier, you're going to have Gibbs and JSN, 2 and 3, then 4 and 5, you're going to have Johnston and Addison. So 106, you're probably going to be in a tough spot. I'll say if you can trade from the 106 and add in the 201, 312, 412, and go move up to pick 5, pick 4, pick 2, pick 3, any of those other ones, so we could lock in like Quentin Johnston instead of Zay Flowers. In a league like this, with a team like this, where the 201, 312, 412 are meaningless, I think that'd make a lot of sense as well. But thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. And as always, if there is anything that I can do for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know, especially if there's any way that I can improve flockfantasy.com for you, my friend. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team that we have. This is going to be coming out from Schmid-Faced. Says, hey, Mason, would love some feedback on what direction to go here. It's a 10-team Superflex full PPR format. Looking at possible trades at the 102 for either the 103 and Garrett Wilson. What? Okay. If you are telling me right now that you have the 102 and someone offered you the 103 and Garrett Wilson, run to take that deal. Run. Turn off this live stream. You don't need to hear anything else I'm about to say. If someone will trade you Garrett Wilson in the 103 for the 102, when in my mind, there's almost no difference, regardless of if it's super flex or a one quarterback league, from pick 2 to pick 3, you go ahead and you pull the trigger. Now, looking at the 103 versus Garrett Wilson, a future first in the 204, this isn't as much of a no-brainer, but I would still go ahead. I'd still take the Garrett Wilson side. Maybe I'm just a Garrett Wilson fanboy. Love the guy coming out of Ohio State. I think you're getting a ton of value with that package. So I would take either deal. I would prefer pick 3 in Garrett Wilson, but I would also take Garrett Wilson, the future first, and the 204. But says, would love any other feedback you have. Don't worry about IDP. Thanks. So thank you so much again, my man. And yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to help too much out with IDP here, but at the same time, I mean, if we're looking at it, you're only having to go through and start one defensive lineman, one linebacker, one DB. The IDP section of this really doesn't matter at all regardless. So if we're going to be looking at this starting lineup, I know it looks incredibly deep, right? I mean, we're starting one quarterback, one super flex, 2 flexes, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers, and 2 running backs. So it's going to be start 10 on the offensive side of the ball. But still at the same time, I mean, it is only a 10-team league, so it's going to be a little more shallow. But nonetheless, at quarterback, we have the combo of Justin Herbert, Jimmy Garoppolo. Going down to the bench, we don't have anybody. So, I mean, definitely would be really nice to get in a quarterback. And no, we were talking about possibly trading away the 103. Even if we would like a quarterback there at pick 2, I still think we would make the Garrett Wilson deal. But nonetheless, I mean, here, if we still stick and pick at either 2 or 3, I think it's going to be between Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, pretty easily. Now, if I were to pick between these guys, I think that we're going to go ahead and take Anthony Richardson here with this team in particular. I've talked a lot about this, where if you're playing in a 12-team Superflex format, you're, in my mind, incentivized to go with the guy that has the higher floor. I think you're incentivized to go with Bryce Young there. But if instead you're playing in that 10-team league, we're incentivized to go with the guy that has the higher ceiling. The guy with the higher ceiling is going to be Anthony Richardson. So I think it makes a little sense if we go there with our first-round selection. Now, going over to RB, we are sitting with Saquon Barkley and J.K. Dobbins. Then down there in the flex spots, we have both David Montgomery and A.J. Dillon. So in my mind, every single one of these running backs in our starting lineup will be a contending asset. The way that we define a contending asset at the running back position is what happens if this running back comes out and is the running back 10 this next year on a points per game basis, do they increase or decrease their dynasty value next offseason? That happens with Saquon Barkley. He decreases his dynasty value. Not really out of expectations, and he's still going to be another year older. J.K. Dobbins, if that happens, I know it's crazy to say, if Dobbins is the running back 10 from a points per game perspective this next year, Dobbins really isn't worth much more than he is now. People are going to look at him and go, okay, well, that's great that he just did that, but at the end of the day, this is now someone going into year 4. And that's how dynasty players treat the running back position. We could almost say the same thing about Montgomery, the same thing about Dillon. I mean, it's completely fine to roster these guys. I mean, it's completely fine to go after players that you think can give you the production we're looking for this next season to be competitive. But we just have to call a spade and say this guy is someone we are rostering not for his value. We are rostering him for his production. Now, going down to the bench, we really don't have much running back depth, but completely fine. The starting lineup were great. Now, going over to wide receiver, the weak part of the roster in my mind, where we have CeeDee Lamb. Yes, love having Lamb, but in a 10-team league in particular, to have Gabe Davis, wide receiver 2, Courtland Sutton, wide receiver 3, horrible. Horrible. Like with Courtland Sutton, I think he is pretty much nothing at this point, especially Marvin Mims is coming over. I know that sounds crazy, but Courtland Sutton, is about to be like 29. The man's literally never been a top 24 wide receiver from a points per game perspective. Yes, I know that sounds crazy. I know everybody's going to say that's not true. It is true. Look it up. There's a reason we were saying Courtland Sutton was the most overdrafted player in fantasy last year. Going down to the bench, we have Darnell Mooney, probably the worst passing offense in the NFL, coming off a torn ACL. We have Tony. Tony has upside, of course, given the offense he's playing in, but Tony's never really proven anything. Wide receiver, we need a complete overhaul. This is where we're going through and saying, you know what? We are going to have to heavily invest into the position, really hoping that we have enough to get it done. Real quick, my dog's barking. Let me text my girlfriend and get her down. Okay. So now going over to tight ends, we're going to have Pat Freiermuth. With Freiermuth, I understand a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, this is a tight end losing value given the fact that, at the end of the day, you have Darnell Washington coming in the 3rd round. This kind of tells us what the Pittsburgh Steelers think of Pat Freiermuth. In my mind, I think they play 2 completely different positions. I think that you're going to have Pat Freiermuth as the tight end that's operating more as the pass catcher. I think you have Darnell Washington a little more in line blocking for, Najee Harris. Of course, it's not good for Pat Freiermuth. I don't want to act like it's a good thing, but I don't think it has too much of an impact on him. And I think people are going to be very much off of Pat Freiermuth, where I'm honestly probably going to be looking to buy low in a lot of spots. I'm still completely fine having Freiermuth as our tight end to rely on. But going down to the bench, oh, thank God, we have Trey Lance. I know it sounds crazy to say that. I know people are going to laugh at me for saying that. I still think Lance has a ton of upside. I'm still very excited to see Lance at quarterback 3 when we had no guy at the position in particular. I think if Lance is a starter this next year, wherever it is, where he most likely will be a starter, the man's going to have enough rushing upside, so we're going to start him over Jimmy Garoppolo anyway. So happy to see Lance. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and let's look at our rookie picks. And this is where we get put into a very difficult situation, right? Because 102, as we were saying, I am most likely going to want to go ahead and trade that pick for the future value that you had presented to you, whether that was the 103 in Garrett Wilson or Garrett Wilson in the 2024 first. But that then puts us in a position where with the rest of our roster, we're not good enough to compete this year. With the rest of our roster, we're going to have to go ahead and kind of punt off to 2024. I almost think this is a good thing, right? Because this team does have some solid long-term pieces to build around. I'm excited to build around Justin Herbert in the long term. I'm excited to build around CeeDee Lamb in the long term. But if we're able to then go through and say, sell Saquon Barkley for 2 future first, sell J.K. Dobbins and a second rounder this year for a future first, even move off of maybe David Montgomery, A.J. Dillon for some future draft capital. If we are able to take those cornerstone assets and build around, say, Herbert, Lamb, Lance, Garrett Wilson, and then the 103, so maybe say Bryce Young, for example, And then if we are able to parlay those other rookies into additional 2024 first and 2025 first, we are going to be in such a good position where, yes, maybe this next season we're going to tank. We're going to earn the 101 in that 2024 draft, but then we're going to be bringing in Caleb Williams. And then if we have an additional 4 or 5 first-round picks in next year's draft, regardless of if we decide to go through and look to trade those picks for veteran assets next offseason, or regardless of if we look to go through and take some rookies on our own right, this can be a team that's on the borderline of contending right now, where we're saying, okay, well, we have one of two things we can do. We can try to go all in, right? We can try to go through and we can look to try to sell maybe, our 2024 first our 2024 first for Jalen Waddle. A 2024 and 2025 first for T. Higgins, and then plug in Waddle and T. Higgins. And here we have a good enough roster to compete now, and we can be a top 3 team in the league. Or we can just punt this one season and put ourselves in a position where we can be the best team in the league next year. And not only the best team in the league next year, but also incredibly young while we're at it, to continue to get better and to be even better in 2025, be even better in 2026. So I think this team has a ridiculous amount of value on it. I would just look to move off the veterans, those guys that we talked about having less value next offseason than they do currently. Bring in future draft capital, make the trade with the 102, and then set yourself up perfectly to earn the 101 in 2024 and dominate at that point. But I think that's all we have for you there, my man. Thank you so much again for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. Really hope that was able to help you out. Really hope you're able to get something from it. And as always, if there is anything that I can do for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'd be super happy to help you out with anything, especially if I can help you out with anything on flockfantasy.com. But thank you again, everybody, for hanging out with us in this live stream. We're going to go ahead and do this pretty much daily. I have a lot of fun doing these. We have a lot of people wanting us to look at their dynasty teams. If you want to get your dynasty team on one of these, go to flockfantasy.com. Also get all my updated rankings there. Also get into drafts with us there. Get the rankings of all your favorite content creators. But I think that's all I have for you again. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you and really hope that you have a great day.